This week I am excited to share with you a journey that winds up in York, Pennsylvania, but starts all the way in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the middle of Africa. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, how does one's journey start from the Congo and end up in York, Pennsylvania? Makaya Revell shares his story and explains exactly that, how that happened. A moment in his life that completely changed the direction and the trajectory of where he was going and put him on a path where he now fights alongside refugees. He fights for orphaned children of the war in Congo. There's a lot to unpack here. Makaya Revell and his story is a remarkable and inspirational one. And I hope you enjoy episode 16 of the Journeyman Chronicles. But we need to start, as always, from the beginning. So, this is Makaya Revell, and these are the Journeyman Chronicles. Oh man, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you guys are doing well. It's been a long 2 weeks. Continuing to deal with the pain in the backside that is COVID-19. I have been quarantining the past week along with my wife and my 2 little girls. We've been kind of isolated from the world. I'm getting a little frustrated with it, but the upside is that I was able to work on the podcast. I got to talk to a gentleman by the name of Makaya Revell. His story was brought to my attention from Christine Blair. If you remember Christine, a few episodes back, she had messaged me this story. She knows Makaya. She thought he would be great for the podcast, and she was not wrong. I reached out to Makaya. He was down to do the interview. We did it, and we had a great conversation. I had a blast interviewing him. I wish I would have not been as sick as I was, and I'm just saying that because, good God, I can just tell, just listening back, I'm losing my voice. It's hard to really not notice that I was stuffy, and I was dealing with, a cold or flu, or however you want to describe it. So these are the small little things that I'm learning to deal with in the podcast world. But nonetheless, this story is inspiring. And I've said that several times while talking about it. And I'm sure I've used that word several times already in this podcast and in this episode in particular, but it truly is. And I hope you enjoy it because, as always, these episodes are meant to intrigue you and to engage you in listening and recognizing your fellow human being, regardless of race or creed, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of where they are from, what they are doing in their lives. We're all dealing with the same stuff. Some more extreme than others, but the emotional impact that these moments have in our lives, they're all the same. They're all mutual. And so Makaya's story is great. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get right into it. Episode 16 of the Journeyman Chronicles is with Makaya Revell. Let's go. Hello, my friend. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you well. Nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Nice to meet you as well.
Thank you. You were brought to my attention from a mutual friend, Christine Blair. I interviewed her a couple weeks ago, and she mentioned you, and she mentioned your story. And after reading your story, I wanted to talk to you. So I'm very, very grateful that you were able to give me some of your time. How have you been doing during this entire pandemic? Just to break the ice, have you been managing the treacherous waters, so to speak?
That's a great question. I mean, the pandemic has been a challenge in all level. Whether it's physical, emotionally, financially, especially with the organization the foundation we are running back in the Congo DRC. So it has been difficult, but the thing is that we have to learn how to manage the darkness because that's what the pandemic is. It's a kind of dark hour we're all navigating through. So we are surviving, trying to keep our heads above water. So it's kind of difficult, but I think if we keep doing what we're doing, that's for the safety and, keep on pushing forward, I think that we can finally made it to the end of the line, I think. But it's a challenging.
It's very challenging, very challenging. You had mentioned the foundation, and I'm assuming you're referring to the one that you named after your mother.
Yeah, it's called the Mary Mambo Makaya Foundation.
This foundation, there's a lot that I want to unpack here, and really the podcast is about interviewing people from this area, and you are from the Congo, but you ended up here in Pennsylvania, so hence here we are discussing your story. But it's all about perseverance and what you've done to get from that point to this point, and it's the journey and it's the story. That's what I'm interested in. So please, if you wouldn't mind, for those that are listening and for myself, let's start from the very beginning of your story. How did you, Makaya, end up here in the United States?
That's a long story. I was born and raised in the Democratic Republic of Congo. When I was born, it was being called Zaire.
Okay.
But over time, conflicts, where the country changes name, changes flags, everything changes. But I was born in the Congo. I came to the United States when I was 16 years old. I grew up in a very stable household. Both of my parents were home. My 4 brothers. I am a firstborn in the family. So the family, dynamic were kind of stable in a Congolese standpoint because both my parents were working in the government. Back then, they were working in the government Mobutu at that time because Mobutu was a president. So things were great. Things were going well until the genocide that took place in Rwanda in 1994.
April 1994, a plane carrying President Habyarimana and his Burundian counterpart Cyprien Ntaryamira, both Hutus, was shot down, killing everyone on board. The RPF said the plane had been shot down by Hutus to provide an excuse for the genocide.
Well, the genocide was horrible. The international community didn't do much, and the victims fled to the neighboring countries. One of the countries where they end up with was my country, Congo, because we opened a border for this victim of genocide to have a home. At that time, my government were following the Geneva Convention status of a refugee that took place in 1951. So for that, essentially opened a border for these people who were fleeing violence to come to my country. That wasn't a problem until the government of Rwanda started chasing them into Congo to continue to kill them, because in the Congo, these refugees were creating a kind of rebellious to go take revenge in Rwanda. So when they chased them there, and the opposition of Mobutu, which was my president, kind of took advantage of the situation. They started training the young boys, and from then they create enough, militias and manpower to go overthrow Mobutu. This event took place in 1997. So Mobutu fled the country. At that time, they kind of instigate the witch hunt policy, which was if anyone who used to work with the Mobutu government, where they were subject for arrest or even assassination or murder of a kind. So my parents found themselves in a very difficult situation at that time because everybody knew when they were government workers. And,
okay, yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
So
were your parents aware like that this could be a problem as the tension was
yes.
escalating? They were like, okay, we might have a problem on our hands. Yeah.
Yes, because at that time the borders were closed. But the flies were not coming in and out, and but the war was already hot in the country, and the foreign forces even joined. Congo was invaded by 8 different countries. So when we have all these foreign troops in the Congo, so when they turned the Congo into the rape capital of the world. So rape, they were using rape as a weapon of war. Schools were closed. Things were really bad in the Congo at that time.
Wow.
Because for the soldier in our country, they couldn't speak our language, and it's just a mess.
Right.
So I was learning how to drive. Even in a mix of a chaos, in a town where I was, but we were living in the west part of the country, where the town was called Matadi. Life was semi-normal in a way, in spite of, the conflict, where people were still doing the day-to-day things. I was learning how to drive. And my driver got into kind of an accident with the police who were kind of patrolling the city. And I got in the car, kind of started running. I went to my friend's house, and my friend said that I can stay there because if they know I'm there, but they will go after him and his family. So since we live close to the port city, so the safest place to me to go was to the ship to go to hide. So my intention was to go hide in the ship, and then later on I'm gonna go home to kind of stay away from the police, the chaos and stuff. But Lelo that I knew, they went to the hospital where my father was, because at that time my father was ill, where he was in the hospital. But they went to the hospital and they killed him. And when they came back in my home, kind of started shooting my house. And my Ayo brother was struck with a bullet, who also later died from an infection. So I spent 3 days at that in the ship, and next thing you know, I was, in the Atlantic Ocean, and the ship crew came in and they got me, and they gave me medical treatment because when I was running, I fell and I cut myself in the leg, and they put some band-aids and give me medical treatment.
So did you fall asleep on the ship, or how did? Okay.
Yeah, I fell asleep on the ship.
So you were there for 3 days before it sailed, or how?
I was there for 3 days.
Wow.
But they came in and found me. They gave me food, and I didn't know where I was. I found myself in the Atlantic Ocean. I didn't speak a language, but the captain I kind of spoke a little bit of French.
Okay.
So we kind of communicated that way.
So they were helpful.
Kind of helpful, yes. But the captain was very helpful.
Okay.
He really helped me. Check on me, make sure I took medicine, make sure I eat something. So well, he kind of took me as a kind of personal care a little bit, kind of isolated me from the rest of the crew or member of the ship. So he put me in a different room So adult integrated with other
Gotcha.
adults who were. So we went to Brazil and went to Brazil. I got on the ship, went to immigration, but for some reason, they brought me back to the ship. And went to Argentina.
Wow.
The same thing happened. And the captain said that kind of a final stop is the United States. So for the ship was coming to the United States. So for we docked to New Orleans, and that's when I was handed over to the U.S. immigration authority. That's how I came to the United States.
So you're 16 years old and
16.
you're on this ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You can't really communicate very well with the crew. Somewhat. You said the captain spoke French.
The captain, yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine what was going through your mind, but what was going through your mind at that time? I mean, that you had no idea where you were going at all.
At the time, I was thinking about my mom.
Yeah.
So my mom, was my kind of, which was my right hand person. Where she was my hero. But she sacrificed so much for me, and she was in my mind because I knew that if she's okay, everybody else will be okay.
She had no idea where you were, I'm assuming, right?
No idea. Nobody knew where I was. And, my brothers later told me that they thought I was dead. That I got killed somewhere, but they will never find me again.
How long was it until your mom got word that where you were and that you were alive?
It was about a month and a half.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's in the United States. So now you're in the United States, handed over. And what happens with you now?
Growing up in Africa, in the Congo in particular, but you grew up with some kind of attitude because, in a school, like everybody are bullied in school. So you cannot be evicted.
Yeah, you got to be tough.
You got to be tough. So I saw the small boats came to the ship to pick me up with the, tall man, with the uniform. And I told the captain that I'm not getting off of this ship. and the captain said, no, I'll put you up to get out because, they will help you. They will, try to find a place for you. And I said, I'm not getting off. So they end up getting the interpreter from Canada. And this kind of wonderful woman, where she was on the phone with me, and she explained the process. That if I get off a ship, they will process me, and they will issue protection, and that's how I was able to get off a ship. So but they were waiting there for quite some time to get off a ship. After that, they took me to prison. I'd never been in prison before. I was terrified.
They took you to prison. They took you to prison.
Yes.
In New York or before you flew to New York?
In New Orleans, because it was already late.
Gotcha.
So I had to spend the night in prison.
I got you. So geez. Yeah. Wow. So you had to spend the night in prison. Gotcha.
Yeah. So next day, I was on a plane to New York, and from New York, we drove to Reading, Pennsylvania.
The as you're telling me the story, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, like, if I was in your shoes at this moment, I would feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone episode where everything just doesn't really seem what it is. It's like, when were you able to finally get a sense of like a reality, like some sense of normalcy? Did it take you a long time? Because your whole world just flipped upside down in a matter of days.
Yeah. I was physically sick.
Sure.
So nothing was making sense.
Yeah.
But what helped was the interpreter was on me. Where she was continuing to inform me that where I'm going and the why and I'll be able to make a phone call as soon as we get there. So I have in the back of my mind that I will call my mom and I will check on my mom and I can tell her what's going on with me. So nothing else was making sense. Nothing else mattered but the idea that I will have a conversation with my mom, kind of suppress all the negativity, what's happening around me, because that's what my focus was, to talk to my mom.
So she was your driving force. She's always been your driving force, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yes.
When you finally spoke to her, tell me about that conversation.
When I spoke to her, but they were in hiding.
Okay.
So we couldn't talk long because when the person was in phone and but they didn't want to know, but the people know where they were. But they were in hiding, and but she was in silence, and she started praying. Thanking God and tell him to be strong. But she was extremely happy to hear my voice, and I was relieved to hear my voice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can only imagine. I know that I'm close with my mom, and so when you said that she's my right hand, I completely understand that sentiment. One of the things that I thought was interesting when I was reading up on you was I don't know if it's around this time or not, but you had an experience with somebody that couldn't pronounce your name.
This was in a detention center, but we have to go to school to learn English, and it wasn't my teacher, but she couldn't pronounce my name, Kiangana Dialungala. Instead, where she said that from now on, my name become a Johnny. That's something much easier for her to pronounce. I was okay with that because, I thought this is how things works. In the United States, you can randomly change somebody's name and, nothing will happen. And the people have to be accepted to what's happening. And people start calling me Johnny. Some group of people, the area where I lived in the United States, where they don't know me as a Kiangana or Makaya, they know me as a Johnny. After leaving a detention center, but we were kind of, protesting about the condition that was happening at detention center. This place were hosting unaccompanied minors. The immigrant children who were coming to the United States from all over the world. This was in 2002, this event took place. The treatment there wasn't too cool. But there were evidence of abuse, kind of neglect, and kind of a harsh, kind of a hostile environment. But to live in the kind of, where the kids, we were immigrant, refugees, asylum seekers. We didn't speak any English, but we didn't know any better. And at the time, even the U.S. was going through a tough time as well, because this was 1 year after 9/11. So the hatred toward immigrants, the demonization, the blame were very much alive a year later in 2002. So that kind of spill over to the immigration policies, so but the immigrants were not, in the right place, in the right time in the United States. So we created some kind of advocacy with the Amnesty International. I was part of it, and they end up, writing a report, making a lot of noise about it. But Amnesty International is a wonderful organization, where when it comes to defending, human rights, generally speaking. It was a President Bush administration, ended up kind of closing the place, and those children who had a family in the U.S., they were given to their families. And those of us who didn't have any family, we were put into forced care system. So I went to Philadelphia. The foster system wasn't great. I have a negative experience in the foster system. And when I aged out of foster system, I was, transferred to York, Pennsylvania. So that's where I met my parents.
You were in the foster care system, I'm assuming, for 2 years. Is that right? Or how long were you there for?
About a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that experience was not good for you at all, you said. It was a negative experience.
I'm not speaking for everyone because everyone have their own different experiences. But I think the foster system in the United States can do better, especially following through to those who are aging out through the system. Because it seems like after you age out of the system, but you get abandoned and then you went on. And it is difficult to, go to college, but to be productive over society because, it's in a weak childhood system. And when you grow up like that, and when you become, all of a sudden, when you are independent, but you really don't have the resource that you need but to make you productive in society. So I think the system can do better, especially on the children who are aging out of the system.
There's no tools. You're saying there's nothing.
There's no tools. There's no follow up. Sometimes in life, what we need is just a little bit of push. Like, somebody continuously to push you but to do better. I will argue that, I think there must be some kind of program that, to make sure that those who are aging out of foster system, we can finish a high school and then they have an opportunity to go to college. If they want to, it doesn't have to be college. It can be a vocational school.
Sure.
You can kind of teach a trade or things like that. But, unfortunately, but you see a lot of these, foster children are ending up dead or in prison or in hospitals because they don't have a, kind of guardianship through the system.
One of the things that I appreciate about talking with people in their journey is that I have an opportunity to learn something. And I hope that while people listen to this podcast, they experience the same thing. And while Makaya is talking, there's a lot that's going through my mind. Being a refugee, escaping in genocide, even though you're dealing with this genocide sweeping from Rwanda into the DRC where he lives, you still have the ability to live and cope with somewhat of an everyday life. You hear him say that it was still somewhat normal and they still did the day-to-day things. And that just, it shows that I take this life for granted because I couldn't imagine living like that. But here he is, 16 years old, and he is doing his day-to-day thing in the middle of this war that's beginning to brew. And he is learning how to drive. There's an accident that he's involved in where the local police are involved. And of course, given the climate of what's going on in the Congo right now and the genocide that's coming through, he already knows, given that his parents work in the government, he already knows he can't be anywhere near the police, the militia that's coming through. And so he runs, he goes. That to me is powerful because I couldn't imagine the adrenaline, the fear of knowing what could happen, because there's obviously no doubt in his mind what can happen. It's been proven. They will kill and murder. And being 16 years old, I remember what I was going through. I was just starting high school. I'm worried about acne and I'm worried about how my clothes look. And here's Makaya running for his life. And so he ends up on this ship because he knows that he could possibly hide out in Port City. He can hide here, hopefully, lay low for a couple hours and get out of there safely. And unfortunately, that's just not the way it worked out. And you hear him talk about how he fell asleep on this ship and he wakes up and it's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Finding out that they killed his father while his father was in the hospital, and then went to his house and shot it up, and his brother ended up being struck by a bullet and died from infection later on. 8 years old his brother was. And here he is, unable to truly mourn the loss of his family, because at this point he's unaware of what's even going on. He's in the middle of the ocean on a ship, and the crew of the ship take care of him, and here he is now going through this process of trying to find an immigration system that'll take him in. And of course Brazil and Argentina, they deny him, and so he ends up in New Orleans, and that's how Makaya ends up in the United States. I don't typically do this, but I just felt compelled to really speak at this point and just help people truly understand. Like, I hope you understand the significance of this moment in someone's life. This person being Makaya Revell, who couldn't speak English, found himself in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, is trying to communicate with the captain the best way he can. There's some common ground with the French language. They can kind of communicate that way. But here he is, and the foster care system that he goes through, and he's able to push himself through. I find that so admirable. So before we continue on with the story, let's take a quick small break, and then we'll get back to the second half of this with Makaya Revell. Okay, in the second half of this interview, Makaya talks about all of his parents. We get into his birth mother a little bit more. We get into how his birth name, Kiangana Dialungana, how it caused some friction within his family. And we also get into his adoptive parents, Dr. Elizabeth and Alvin Revell. Now, Dr. Alvin Revell has since passed, but he was a big part of Makaya's life here. Makaya is very, very fond of him. And Dr. Elizabeth Revell still, to this day, fights along her son and helps him in his mission for the refugees and for the orphans of the war in Congo. So, let's get right into it. Here is the second half of the interview. Enjoy.
Going back to Congo, Mary had me when she was 18 years old, a teenage young woman. She grew up Catholic. At that time, having a baby, I'm married as a Catholic. In 1986 was no.
I grew up Catholic. I know that story.
So her parents wanted her to, have an abortion
Gotcha.
because what she did was she brought shame in the family, initially, because when she got pregnant, and there was a complication between my grandpa and my mom, and her best friend got involved, and somehow I think my grandpa gave her best friend something to give Mary, so that would complicate the pregnancy. And when Mary got sick and she went to the hospital, the doctor informed me what was going on, and she ran away from home. But she went in a remote area called Gamba. This is where kind of spiritual church. They believe their own religion, but they believe in their own way of life. And they took Mary in. I was born in that temple.
Okay.
The night I was born, the founder of this church, his son happened to be in area, and he came and he named me his family name, Dialungana Kianga, meaning that the gift doesn't belong to you. And he told Mary that you just give birth to one of us. So, coming back to the US, the name you just, mentioned, the Makaya, she and Revell, Kiangana brought conflict at home. My father really didn't accept that name, and his resentment, kind of spill over me a little bit. So it was kind of complicated, difficult to live, with that kind of environment a little bit, that, being angry because of the name I got. But Mary, my mom refused to change it. And in the back of my mind, I always reflect that, the conflicts, like I can hear them in my mind, they're arguing in the middle of the night, and I'm pretending to sleep, but I can hear everything's going on there. And when I met Doctors Revell's, changing a name was one thing I hope for, and they allow me to do that. So to me, that's a kind of sacred thing that they they do for me. Like it's kind of old battle I have been fighting that I can see me winning by changing a name that caused me suffering.
Sure. It was like you were given an opportunity to finally experience something that you were having, for that internal battle that you just referred to. Were you always, like, did you always want to change your name, or was that just something that when you always just kind of, it was in the back of your head, and then when you finally had this opportunity, you were like, oh, I can do this now? Or
yeah, I mean, I don't even know if you can change your name. I mean, to me, I felt like I was stuck with that.
yeah.
But feeling kind of responsible for the conflict that was coming out of home.
So you felt responsible for
So
the
I
arguments
feel
between your,
responsible.
gotcha.
Yeah. So it was kind of, even with the birthday celebration, Mary have to celebrate birthday with me in private, where my brother's birthday was celebrated together as family. So it was interesting,
Yeah.
to see, I was just ashamed,
Yeah.
feeling ashamed and, responsible, and, kind of blame myself for years. Yeah.
But now you have this opportunity, you have this new name. Tell me how you met Dr. Revell's.
When I aged out of foster system, like we just, alluded, I kind of got kicked out of the system. Like, I'm in my own now.
Right.
So with no English.
Oh, you still
No,
didn't? So
nothing.
you didn't know English at this point yet, or
No,
not at all? Oh, wow.
I kind of, I can hear,
A little bit.
certain words, but
Yeah.
speaking, no.
Wow.
Yeah. So I came to York, PA, to live in a group home. But the home was called a Golden Venture. They were famous here in York, helping a Chinese immigrant during a Bill Clinton administration. So they took me in, and I started going to school in high school. I attended William Penn High here in York. And in 2005, that's when I received a call that Mary has died.
I'm sorry.
So when Mary died, it kind of, I was in a very difficult space, psychologically.
Yeah.
I lost the will to live because, Mary was Mary. So it was difficult obtaining that news that, Mary dying. And I stopped going to school and kind of planning how I'm gonna kill myself. So um,
Take your time, man.
I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize.
Um,
Take your time. It was a dark spot in your life.
yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm still there.
Yeah. I think those of us that have been in that dark spot, man, it never leaves. You just learn to cope with it.
Yeah. There was somebody who used to volunteer in this facility, Leon. Um, Leon knew a local psychologist by the name of Dr. Revell. She was doing a pro bono psychotherapy for the immigrants, helping the trauma. Leanne contacted Dr. Revell, and that's how I met Dr. Revell. Yeah.
She saw something in you.
Yes, she did. Yeah. First time we met, she asked me what my name was, and I told her my name was Johnny. She was educated enough to know that Congo is a francophone country. We don't name people English names.
Right.
And she said, "Really? Is your name Johnny?" And that's when I said, "No, my name is Kiangana Diarungana." And she pronounced it well, and she asked where Johnny came from. I explained, and she said that from now on, never, ever allow anyone to call you Johnny again.
Awesome.
If anybody cannot pronounce your name, you teach them how to pronounce your name.
Nice.
So I kind of felt empowered. Like,
yeah,
I cannot be Johnny anymore. So with that changed for me that day. And the fun thing was the first time they scheduled our meeting, they asked to take me to events, both my parents, and I refused to go. So
you weren't comfortable, or
I wasn't feeling like integrated with the people.
Gotcha.
I just want to sit in my spot. I didn't feel like it going. And my friend, who also is living in this place, really encouraged me to go.
Okay.
It's a good way to get in the house and then just go to an event. And that's how I went. So going to the event and meeting my parents really changed my life today. Yeah, it really changed my life.
Talk to me about the work that you're doing right now in regards to the orphans, specifically orphans in the Congo as a result of the war that you've been helping. I know you started this foundation and you're doing a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff that you're involved in, and I would like, if you don't mind, I would love for you to just share that with everybody.
What happened in the Congo was an assault to our way of life that, foreign troop coming in, rape, committing a genocide, ethnic cleansing in my country, and supported by multinational corporations, simply because we have a, natural resource that they needed. Instead of coming in with their fair trade spirit, where they're coming in with the weapons to destroy the fabric of our life, to destroy the land of our ancestors. by instigating the violence. We are not violence people. Violence came to us. I saw violence in my country. I saw what conflict can do, to the mind of the people. I saw what the damage it has caused in our communities. The idea of using the rape as a weapon of war, people were leaving the villages. People were committing a mass suicide in the country because of that.
Mm.
And killing a parent, leaving orphans, in millions of orphans in my country. So when I was given a little bit the opportunity, when my mother died, Mary, I didn't want her name to just, vanish. I didn't want her idea, but thanks for she believed in, for it to be, disappear. On her tribute, that's why I decided to create the Mary Makaya Foundation to help the orphans of war in the Congo. There are millions of orphans, but if we can help one at a time, if that's what's going to take, we must do that. We opened as an orphanage in 2012. From then and now, we have assisted over 7,000 orphans.
That's great.
This past Christmas, last year, we fed over 500 orphans because a lot of these kids don't get a decent meal, but they don't get gift. So we have been getting involved, trying to kind of bring the happiness, in the face of suffering. So the motivation came from my country, the agony I saw in my country, and the loss of my mother. So that's what created the Mary Makaya Foundation. The idea came about in 2005, but it became a reality in 2012. That's when we started working. But it won't be possible if it wasn't my parents and their friends and the American people. It took the whole village of people to come. People donating money, donating time. Christine Blair was working there full time, volunteering her time and the resource just to make sure that the children, have something to wear, medical care, any capacity that where she could, where she even send the clothing back home, but to make sure the children have their clothes for the winter. So the mentality of the American people who are around me, my mom's friends, and that really made a difference. But they gave me hope that this is possible, it can happen. So it could have done, if it wasn't the help we received and they continue to receive today. Even being here, you're giving me time. You are contributing to the cause. Sometimes when we do things that we don't know what effect it's going to make to the other people that we will never know.
Right.
I am, kind of living proof of that.
You are. You're a great example of that. The possibilities are endless. And hearing you talk, I'm just overwhelmed with a lot of different emotions right now because your demeanor is calm. You wouldn't think that you've gone through this traumatic experience, but the traumatic experience that you've gone through, it didn't keep you down. You ended up building something out of that. And here you are, talking about a foundation that you thought of in 2005, and you saw it come to fruition 7 years later. We're talking right now about your life, and I mean, I'm sure you do think about it often, but the journey that you've taken to get to where you're at now. I mean, you have a master's. What did you get your master's in?
International peace and conflict resolution.
Look at the work you're doing right now. This is amazing stuff. How does this work in regards to helping the orphans? Is that over in the Congo, or are they coming here and you're helping them? I'm naive when it comes to that process.
The process is very simple because, I mean, it's not simple. You know, there's a lot of obstacles because you have to deal with the government, the people,
Right.
for people, you know, where not everyone is coming to the cause with the right attention, and the government is watching what they're doing. So, which is why we love that. Our children, the idea is, you know, a lot of times people want to, you know, come to the West. They don't want to come to America. They want to, you know, it's great. I'm not rejecting that. I think it's wonderful. But the Mary Makaya Foundation doctrine is to raise Congolese children, and they one day become a productive citizen of Congo. We don't do adoption. We don't allow for the children to go somewhere else. We want them to grow up in Congo, and one day help other children, other people in the country. So we only get children under the age of 1. So we get them fairly young, so we can raise them from a beginning, and then so we can become for the people they know all their lives. But we raise them in the Congo, and we have a full staff in the Congo, which is people are doing a tremendous job, and we train young people, and also how to be peaceful, dialogue, because in a society such as the Congo, where people went through so much, conflict, violence, economic conflict, gender-based conflicts, kind of, homophobic.
Mm-hmm.
And while you have over time, but you have a depressed generation, and but they turn the anger, the sadness into violence sometimes. That's why we engage young men, young Congolese boys, to peace dialogue and the helping foundation. But you see a lot of young men are taking care of babies in our orphanage in the Congo. So that's part of a strategy what we use to kind of unpack the sadness, with the anger, the revenge mindset, turning them into their compassion, young people, the caring and loving young men.
I never even thought about that. That's very, very cool. The proverbial, men don't show weakness, and I'm sure in the Congo the young men were treated the same way, to show them compassion and to have them take care of babies and children. That's a wonderful way to help them see how important it is to be compassionate and be empathetic and be caring and nurturing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me, because I don't know if I've ever heard a story this unique and this impactful, to be quite honest. And I'm not saying that lightly. I've heard a lot of great stories and inspirational stories, but yours, only because I keep reminding myself that you came here when you were 16 years old, not knowing where the hell you were going. And here you are, and you made something out of yourself. What is next for you? What do you have planned for your future endeavors in regards to your foundation or anything else in for that matter?
Um, Last year, we created a small company, international company called Peace Promise Consulting. Um, Peace Promise Consulting is a response to what's going on in the world. So what we do is we, you know, contact these entities, and they tell us what's going on, how we can help them, and when we come back and we figure out how we can maintain a peaceful work environment. Because what we have noticed that companies, big or small, are losing billions of dollars a year because they are avoiding a conflict in the workplace. So, but they're paying off a conflict instead of confronting it or addressing it. Because at some point, like what we just had a training where we talked about conflict, it can be good if you use it well. It can be because conflict brings energy. So
Sure.
if you turn that energy into positively, but you have a successful home, successful family or businesses. So Peace Promise Consulting is coming in to help to build a, more safe community and, businesses and government entities. So that's a project that we're working on now. So, but the website is at peacepromiseconsulting.com. I really encourage people to look at it and see what we offer. And what's next? You talked about how I came here. It has been 20 years. 20 years.
20 years.
It will be 20 years in December, but I'm still, fighting the immigration system.
Oh wow.
So, in April of this year, I'm gonna go back in court and continue the fight. And we'll take it from there. But the journey is, Felix, I'll be honest with you. I think, you heard this before, but life is full of events. But you have to take care of each event as it comes. You have to give it your 100% attention before you move on the next thing.
Yeah.
Because for you don't wanna, mess up some particular event. And what happened to us, naturally, it can be 10 or 15%, but 85 or 90% of the rest is it's your reaction. It's more like what do you do about what happened to you? So my story is not unique, but you hear a lot of refugees today, where they're coming from, Nigeria, or Sudan, or Afghanistan, or Syria. You see some kind of similarity. What's unique about my story is the events that's happening around me. Meeting the people that I met here. They invested the time and energy and the resource just so I can be well. That's something that I don't see every day. It's very, very unique. So learning that kind of behavior around me, seeing these people, supporting me, my mom, 24/7 taking care of me, whatever I need, but she's providing. My father, my late father, but they're there for me. So the only thing I can do is paying it forward. The foundation, and oftentimes I speak, around the country, speak to young people, try to, motivate them, trying to give them a direction in life, trying to teach them something new. Is it because for what happened to me in this country have been tremendously positive, and that's something that I, very much appreciate it.
I very much appreciate you opening up my eyes to the realization that when you said that your story isn't unique, that it's the circumstances around it, but the fact that your story as a refugee, there's others before you, and there'll be more after you, and that makes me think that, okay, then I need to open up my eyes and start paying attention to the world around me, which is the whole concept of this podcast, was to get to know different types of people and understand their story, and to learn more and to become better people. I just met you tonight, but I appreciate you so much. I'm glad we met.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time out of I know you're a busy guy. You got the nice jacket. You looking sharp right there, man. What's your schedule like? What's your day like?
My day, in morning, I usually go to DC or Silver Spring, and I kind of helping in a human rights organization there. I usually spend 5 hours, and then I come back home and they start writing a content for the business, and kind of creating a looking for clients, kind of stuff, emailing, and having a meeting after meeting with the Congo, the foundation. So I'm very busy, but with the business, Mary Higgins is our if you call a business for you, get her, and she's also helping kind of mitigate the business. So I do have a help. I do have a help around me, and Doug McKenzie is helping, and just a lot of people around me are helping as well. But I can be busy at a time.
Well, please continue doing what you're doing. Please know that people are noticing it, which I'm sure you're aware of. But hopefully, people listening to this podcast, more people will be aware of your story and check out your mission. And thank you, Makaya Revell. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much as well. Thank you for giving me a voice, to the cause. And I do appreciate it. And I heard a lot of great things about your podcast. And I was like, I want to be there.
I try to keep it interesting. So hopefully you if you listen to any other episode, you'll enjoy it. I had a guest that canceled on me. And so I just sat there for like 15 minutes and I did an episode, and I was like, all right, this, it's like a learning curve. It's like I have this idea, I know what I want to do with it, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. But this worked out beautifully, and I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, man. Nice to get to know you. Thank you so much. You take care of yourself.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Such an awesome guy. I really, really enjoyed this episode because I get to learn things. I get to learn things doing the podcast in general, but this particular episode, the research that I was doing, looking it up, learning about the Congo, just to give you some quick background on Makaya to wrap up. He received his bachelor's in 2015 for international relations from York College, got his master's in international peace and conflict resolution in 2017. He started the Mary Mambu Makaya Foundation in 2012. He has two brothers in DRC right now that are helping with the foundation as well. Here's the situation with Makaya is through all this, all the work that he's been doing, his immigration status is still technically kind of in limbo for the past 20 years. He can't go back to the Congo until he obtains protection from the U.S. government because he is an asylum seeker. So he's got that on his plate as well. And this April, he's going back to court to deal with that. But, considering everything that he's doing here and the work that he's doing, and he's still dealing with the fact that the immigration status, and that has to be a lot on him. And my hat off to you, Makaya, for doing all the work that you're doing and still maintaining a level head, even to deal with your own situation. Now, I'm going to be posting links to all of this information in the description so you can check it out for yourself. But the work that he's doing, please help him if you can. If you know anybody that is in position to do a lot of work and help for him, send this information, spread it, share it. Makaya Revell, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Thank you for joining me on the Journeyman Chronicles. I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Until then, remember to maintain focus and stay continuous through all 4 seasons. My name is Felix C. Arroyo. I am the Journeyman, and these are the Journeyman Chronicles. Peace.